Today, I have the great pleasure speaking with Cary Broussard. Cary is the founder and CEO of From Cinderella to CEO. She has an amazing career in our industry, from corporate America to entrepreneur. I'm sure you're going to learn a lot of great insights from Cary. Enjoy my conversation with Cary Broussard. Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meeting podcast. And today I have the great pleasure of speaking with an old friend, Cary Broussard. Cary is the CEO of From Cinderella to CEO. She has an amazing career. She's a very inspiring person. And we're going to discuss about her journey and a recommendation that she has for anyone in industry. Cary, thank you so much for taking the time.
Eric, it is such a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
My great pleasure. The first question I always ask people, because I'm very curious, how did you get into the industry? That's always fascinating to me. It's not the traditional journey today that younger generation might have like a curriculum. So how did you join the industry?
Yeah, it's a great question. And hospitality is very welcoming, I think, to people from all different walks of life in terms of where you start, whether or not you have a degree, just what your interests are. And then I think many of us in the hospitality industry have a proclivity to, one, be around people, and two, to be in the service industry. So I started my career unofficially as a banquet waitress at the Hyatt in Lake Tahoe one college summer. That was a great job, to be a banquet waitress, because you could work 4 hours a day. And I learned how to balance like 7 plates on one arm, and, work 4 hours a day and you make great money in the banquet world. And so that was, a really great experience. And living in Lake Tahoe wasn't shabby. And then it was nice. I'm sure any of those of you out there who have been to Lake Tahoe would love to live there. And I got to live there. So, no, I'm just kidding. So it was great. It was great. And then just officially, I started my career in hospitality at the Peabody Hotel in Memphis, Tennessee, when I was director of PR, public relations, for the hotel, and traveled with the Ducks. I don't know if you knew that.
Yes, I remember the Peabody. Actually, I think is in Hyatt now in Orlando.
Oh, is there still a Peabody in Orlando? I don't know.
No, I think now it's in Hyatt, but I remember those Ducks with the music and the official march and
with the quack, quack, quack. And so one of the things of just little known fact is, if you've ever seen the movie Howard the Duck, if anybody's listening who's seen Howard the Duck, you know what a terrible movie it is. Well, it was done by George Lucas too, but I ended up, when I was head of PR in Memphis, Tennessee. I really wanted to get out of Memphis, by the way, at that point in time. And so I think Paramount Pictures contacted us and said, would you bring the Peabody Ducks to the premiere of the movie Howard the Duck? We're going to do a special showing at the Malco Theater. Can you come and watch it? So I went, I don't know, somebody must have gone with me, but I went to watch it, and I'm watching it, finished watching it. I was like, that was really a weird movie. So I went back to the office, told him it was a great movie, and yes, we should go to LA and take the Ducks, which we did. And we did the Peabody Ducks march out to the King Cotton March. To the John Philip Sousa's King Cotton March music. And so we marched the Ducks along Camino Real, and that's a neat little street in Beverly Hills, and then took them to the premiere.
Nice.
That night, it was fun.
Those meetings and even we have to bring animals. I remember once, I think it was in Spain, to Shiba, and they had this logo with an elephant. And guess what? Yes.
They brought an elephant.
Yes. That's
what
my
elephant?
My partner in Spain told me one day that they had to find a circus that was around that they could bring in. Anyway, so that was the
You probably have some good animal stories too.
Right. Oh, yes.
Yes, you've been all over the world, I'm sure, in different situations where you probably.
Yeah, I got some. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So that was the Peabody, and afterwards?
So that was the Peabody Hotel. And then I ended up finding out about a position open with Wyndham Hotels through networking, right? And so they were looking for a head of PR, and they had I think they had 49 hotels at the time. I know they did. And so the Bells family, BELZ family, based in Memphis, was a real estate family as well as owned hotels. And they knew the Trammell Crow family based in Dallas, Texas. And the Trammell Crow family had started the Wyndham brand. And so, it's a small world. And so when I began to interview for this position with Wyndham, I had also been an entrepreneur. I had also worked in Washington, D.C., in the US Capitol for a senator. And so I had a lot of background. I was ambitious, had a lot of background in communications in general. But that work within a hotel for a family kind of sealed the deal, I think, because here was the Trammell Crow family looking for somebody who worked for a family, but knew the hotel business and also knew communications. It was fun.
Yeah. And I remember that you've always been a pioneer and coming with new ideas. Then there was the one of the first, if not the first, women initiative with Wyndham and MPI. That was
Yes.
some years ago.
And you were so supportive of that. Thank you.
How does the ID came about, and what was the reaction when you started with this idea at that time?
Great question. Just background wise, I attended all girls schools growing up in grade school and high school. And I have three sisters. And so I came from a background of really, valuing the opinions and the input of women, men as well, but really kind of like sort of deep down wanted to be a boy because they always seemed to have a lot of fun and could do a lot more things. And so I always had this I was tomboy. I don't know if people use that expression anymore. But when I got into the work world and saw and experienced that we had to be more meek, women had to be, a little bit, speak until you're spoken to, sort of Southern. I was used to that. I was raised in the Southern United States where that was kind of typical, but I was always kind of rebelling against that and sort of like, well, why is that?
Good.
And then when you get into the workplace and you realize, thankfully, that there's a lot of opportunity to contribute ideas and contribute to the overall business. And so when I got to Wyndham, especially Trammell Crow and the family of Trammell Crow, they were entrepreneurs. And I had also owned a PR firm between moving from DC to Dallas. And so after I left the Peabody, I started a PR firm. And from there is when I moved to Dallas. And so when I got to Dallas working for the Trammell Crow family, they encouraged entrepreneurial ideas. Jim Carricker was the CEO. Dave Johnson was at the time head of sales, and then he went up to be
Dave Johnson, DJ?
Dave Johnson, and who has, I think, 3 daughters, maybe 4. I know he has daughters, you have daughters. A lot of people with daughters were saying, hey, I don't want to go backwards when it comes to women in business. So it was I'm not real sure exactly what your question specifically was, except getting to Wyndham, it was entrepreneurial and we were an entrepreneurial company and we wanted to grow from 49 hotels to, as far as we could go.
What is today?
And Dave Johnson was very involved with Meeting Professionals International. And he's the one that got me involved with Christine Duffy and MJ Callahan to start the women's program there.
Yeah, that was my question. How did you get about to start this initiative at that time? And now for 15 years now, you had your own company called From Cinderella. to CEO. I
Yes.
just love the title. Now, if you can elaborate a little bit more on what is it that you're doing with your company?
Well, thank you for that plug. I appreciate it. From Cinderella to CEO is it's kind of a retrospective of how women women in the hospitality industry, women in as customers, business travelers, really helped change the industry for the better. Because we listened and responded to the
Mhm.
ideas that women had, and prior to me writing this book, the history of the industry had been women weren't traveling in great numbers on business. And so around the time that I started a program called Women on Their Way at Wyndham and the NPI program, the women's leadership, we just noted based on research that, hey, women are growing in great numbers as business travelers, not just
Mhm.
leisure travelers, but also they're the decision makers in the meetings industry, in the corporate travel industry. And so taking those ideas from women really transformed how Wyndham was perceived and how we operated as a hotel company through advisory boards, research,
Yeah,
PR. We really helped transform the industry with the help of women.
absolutely. What were your experience and advice to maybe young generation, younger women that are actually entering the industry? And obviously, yes, I'm the father of three daughters.
We
Uh,
don't. Excellent.
Three daughters. According to my wife, I'm the father of three daughters. Absolutely.
Yes.
So
Yes, and she counts well, I've heard. Yeah, that's good.
they might join our industry. Not that I'm pushing for it, but the other one has already alluded to that. But
Mhm,
what would be your advice on two levels? The
mhm.
first level is as a young uh, woman in the industry, and secondly, as a young woman traveling in the hotels. What are the things that they should care about? What is
Yeah.
the routine they should add up? What are your advices here?
And I've lots of advice on this, but I will narrow it. And just to answer your initial question, Cinderella to CEO was the book I wrote after creating the Women on Their Way program. And then I've developed during the pandemic the
Mm,
Cinderella to CEO brand after launching the Cinderella CEO Awards, a coaching, training, diversity and inclusion effort to make sure I get to share advice from not only my experience, but from others. So thank you very much for that
mhm.
question. So I think now is a good time to enter the industry, Eric, and I'd love to hear what you think. Because we took such a dip during the pandemic, now it's on the rise, couldn't go anywhere but up after the pandemic, right? It's like, okay, now we're on the hopefully the trajectory. And so those who are hiring, those who own companies, those who franchise, they're looking at a very diverse slate of candidates now, whereas they may have only been narrowed before to, oh, they
Mhm,
have to be just like me, they have to be ABC traits,
mhm,
they can't look different. Now I think people want diversity of thought. The smart companies want diversity of thought, diversity of age,
mhm.
diversity of talent, all the things that we know make a great organization, a great company. So I think the industry could be good timing. Now, advice I would say if you're going to enter the industry, really be in control of your own destiny. If you have your own values that you want to look for in a company, meaning if I'm going to work for this company, I either want great people to work with who are creative, who are have integrity, who have values to accept and appreciate differences. Those are things that you really, I think, have to put forth on your own trajectory. And then find a company that matches those. Ask the questions in the interviews. And then the second thing is, as a traveler, women in particular, we still have to, as men as well, we have to take safety and cleanliness. They're still the top two issues, I would say, for any traveler. You know, how am I safe in this hotel with this brand? And then is it clean?
In terms of safety, what is it that you would advise?
Sure.
Don't get into the elevator on your own if somebody is there, or lock your room, or I mean, those are basic things. But what is, based on your experience of traveling, the routine that we should all adopt, and especially women, when it comes to traveling?
A great question. I find when I'm traveling, I'm still in a hurry a lot. I'm tired when I get there. Just give me my room. I think the more planning you can do ahead of time before you get to the hotel to let them know what your needs are. I know it's usually just a transaction online. Perhaps you have somebody, the ideal situation is to have somebody help you plan and book your travel on your end. And so they know your needs, they can negotiate for you, they can ensure you have a safe travel experience. I'm speaking from experience because I haven't always done that. And then I've kind of, been in some situations where I've got a long walk from my room to the elevator, and it was an outdoor corridor. It happened to be in Phoenix. It was nice out. It was not bad weather, but it had a pretty interior, corridor too, with lots of greenery, but it just felt a little like I should have been closer, to the front desk or to an elevator so that I would not have had such a long walk. So
Mhm.
pre-planning as much as you can. If you can, when you get there and you haven't pre-planned, talk to the front desk about safety. Just usually that person or those people who are at the front desk can totally empathize with you.
And what are the question you're asking the front desk?
What am I asking them?
Yes.
I am asking them what room would they recommend for a woman traveler who has come in, wants to sleep soundly, and is looking for a clean, comfortable room, but that if I go outside of my room, that
Mm.
I'm not going to have any issues with regard to dark corners, somebody coming around the corner that I'm
Mm.
not aware of. And then lastly, I think, if they say your room number out loud, that is give the key back. If somebody at the front desk has not been trained adequately
Mm.
and somebody announces your room number, whether somebody's around or not,
Right.
and do look at the Yelp reviews, look at the reviews online. Those are, all the things sometimes we don't take the time to do. I encourage us all to do it, and I encourage us to put that just as high on the list of
Mhm.
things I need to do to get to my destination when I'm traveling.
Got it. So it's not only the hotel, but it's the whole journey, different transfer.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, people now, Alto is a good. We have Alto here. I don't know if in Dallas we have it. It's a more of a VIP car service. People prefer. Some people are rightly cautious
Mm.
about travel. Some may be overly cautious, but it's all about you. Nobody can tell you what you think is wrong. If
Mhm.
you have a perception that, or if you have a gut feeling, that to me is like number one. And I will say, if my friend Cordy is listening to me, he and I did some training together, some diversity and inclusion training this year. And I found a hotel that was $100 cheaper. And I moved us to that hotel. And lo and behold, that hotel was not the best hotel, even though it was $100 cheaper. It's
Mm.
like in the long run, do you need to spend a little bit more money? As a matter of fact, we did research when I was at Wyndham that showed that women are willing to pay more to ensure that a safe experience. And sometimes, we just need to do that. How much do you spend in a day? Something else that's frivolous,
Yeah,
let's spend a little extra money on the hotel.
that makes sense. And one of the things I remembered, I was shocked the first time I heard that, and I think that was probably one of your first workshop with Wyndham and MPI about the Women Initiative, is that women in companies don't help each other, and I was shocked to hear that. Is it still the case, and what do you see evolving compared to a few years ago?
I definitely think it's changed for the better. Women were probably, I want to say now, let's say it was 60 years ago. Which God knows, I'm 63 now, so I was 3. But let's say that, that was the beginning of women going into the workforce in a large numbers around that time. And then it just progressively became more and more, to the point when I started at Wyndham, we probably had a handful of women general managers. Now, fast forward, at least most hotel companies, at least 50% of the general managers are women, if not even more. And so my point to that is that there were these few, we called it the few breadcrumbs for women to compete against each other, because the perception was, well, women can't be general managers. They're too soft, or they don't want to be away from their families, or they need to be, in specific jobs, and they can't handle that. So that, I think we've come a long way, baby, in terms of not necessarily looking at competition as other women, but just, compete with yourself, compete with everybody. But that's where a company leader comes in, is to help people not feel like they're competing internally, but they're competing externally against the competition. So yeah, that was a thing for a while. And it was real. It was real because there were so few opportunities, and we really hadn't had a lot of training around collaboration and working together. And so now we have a lot more training. We have a lot more role models. Yeah.
What were your role models?
Who were they? I think when I started out, and this is in my book, my aunt was a role model. She owned a bookstore. She was an entrepreneur. She had a family and a husband who worked. And so, I would call her if I had an issue, or, this is pre-email. My mom, she worked a little bit, but not a lot. But sometimes we don't always go to our mothers. We want to go to an outside person. So I would say it definitely family members, especially in the beginning of my career. And then it evolved into, Dave Johnson was a great role model. Jim Carragher, Fred Kleisner, Judy Hendrick. I had, lots of people that helped me. Layla Rack. Layla Rack was one of the first people who acknowledged me publicly, that said,
Awesome.
yeah, she's in front of my, my bosses and in front of other people. Cary, you have done a great job. And I just was like, oh my God, I kind of wanted to sleep down in my chair, but at the same time, I was just bursting with pride. I was very involved with women's organizations, thanks to Wyndham. We had partnerships with the Susan G. Komen Foundation, Women Impacting Public Policy, National Association of Women Business Owners. And then I had my own advisory board, thanks to Wyndham. So I was able to select women who I thought would be great for the advisory board, getting approval from everybody. But just all of a sudden, Christine Duffy and Adela Cepeda and people that just, Layla was on the board, Judy Hendrick, people that were just, and still are. I miss them. Like I miss you.
That's very kind. Actually, Layla Rack was a guest on my podcast a few weeks ago.
I saw that. I can't wait to put you down now as my favorite podcast, because your guest, Holly Duckworth, Layla, just a lot of great people. And, since the pandemic, we almost have to get reconnected again. And your podcast is helping us do that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
In addition to reading your great book before it's too late.
Yes. Yeah, right. That's my legacy project for my daughters. So yeah, it's another story for sure.
It's a big deal, Eric. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, Cary, you just say something that I was thinking, I just want to come back to it, especially for actually anybody's listening, but especially for younger professional. You mentioned advisory board. It is a concept that I discovered when I was involved in a student organization called ISEC, and it was phenomenal. And
When
the
you were in
point is,
Brussels? When you were in Brussels?
yeah, when I was in Brussels, but it's a worldwide organization. It's all over
Okay.
the world now. But the point is, what prevents you to create your own advisory board,
That's a great,
regardless of your experience or your age or your gender or the country of origin? It is something that I strongly suggest the people I'm coaching get your own advisory board.
great
Select the
point.
people that you trust that are different background and are going to help you. What's your take on it?
One, I think it's a great reminder for everybody. Absolutely. Because especially for an entrepreneur, we sometimes can be isolated. And
Yep.
if we have our own boards, from my experience, and I would say the last advisory board I had was for the Cinderella to CEO Awards in 2019. And so I have a smaller one now that's kind of informal. It's a group of teachers who help me produce and offer classes and curriculum as well as the coaching. But I think if you're interested in doing an official advisory board, no, it takes structure, right? If you're going to start one, you do it just as if you were head of an organization or
Yep.
within a larger organization. You need a job description for the advisory board. Ideally, it doesn't have to be so, rigid. You have to have an agenda of why you want one. You have to actually utilize them. And I
Yep.
think the biggest thing is probably you have to listen to them and potentially, ideally, take their advice and, consider whether or not you're going to pay them or have some sort of, I don't know if it's payment cash, but it might be some, you might give them a
Hmm.
book. You might
Yeah.
give them,
Yeah.
you might get
Something.
them on the podcast, the book, but I think it's really important and
Yeah.
thank you for the reminder to have
Right.
an advisory board.
You say something very important. Say listening to them, and no later than this morning, I was in a training with the EO Entrepreneurs Organization. Different
Mhm.
trainers like me that are coaching a group of what they call accelerator,
Yeah.
and somebody mentioned that they had in their group in the past one person that would ask question, get the answer, and never do anything,
Uh-huh.
and then ask the same question and never do anything. And I start laughing because it remind me that's the definition of an ask all.
And ask all. I love it. I'm going to remember that. And so the person probably was asking a fairly decent question, I would assume.
Oh no, they would just keep asking the same question and not do anything on it, months after months after months after months.
That is really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah,
I wonder
well,
what kind of
listen.
tactic that is. It's an ask hole.
Now, Cary, you have an amazing experience, and I would like you to share your view, having worked in corporate America, and
Mhm,
then have gone now to an entrepreneurial life.
mhm.
How was the transition, and what do you want to share for those who are thinking of maybe starting their business?
Another good question. My feeling is I have benefited from my corporate experience as an entrepreneur. So, having been in the corporate arena, you get gosh, you get the lashings, you get the, you get the scars, you get the experience of, hey, it was dog eat dog a little bit, if not a lot sometimes. And so, if you've been in the corporate world, especially if you're starting out, it is a place to get the systems, the processes, the experience that I could have never traveled all over the world if I had not been with Wyndham Hotels, right? It's rare to be an entrepreneur and have that type of a either one budget or two network. So if you're able to consider doing the corporate or larger company first and then move into entrepreneur, pursuits, which is really what I hadn't really had a plan that I was going to do it this way. But so I went in and out of corporate into entrepreneur and back into corporate. That also occurred in my in my life. So now I work with a lot of corporations because I have that corporate experience and am hired to work with as an entrepreneur. And so there's that enterprise wide scope that you can utilize as an entrepreneur. That if you've had the experience in working with the corporation, I think is valuable.
Would you do it any way differently?
I would think I might have gotten an MBA. I might have considered getting an MBA
Hmm.
when I was with a corporation. And I think now people have the opportunity if they go into, into a career path that they could put that into their stepping stone career trajectory, and a company would help uh, fund that education. I think if you don't have a degree, a bachelor's degree, or
Hmm.
you're
Hmm.
looking for other training, consider always, if you're a lifelong learner, which I know you are, Eric, and teacher, there's just always an upside of continuous learning.
Mm. Agree. Fully agree. Cary, thank you for sharing all of this with me today. My last question for today, it's my favorite question that I gotta keep repeating his name, but as it's from Jason Gaignard at the MMT that came with that question, which I love. When we see each other again in 1 year with a bottle of champagne, what
Nice.
will we be celebrating?
Great question. I feel like the last time I saw you, we were celebrating with a bottle of champagne, by the way.
Oh,
And
for
I think
sure.
I think it was I think it was Kevin Kirby with us. I'm not sure. So, what will we be celebrating? Besides the fact that your book will be on the New York Times bestseller list,
Oh no, please.
and I do think you should be on MSNBC and CNBC or one of these shows talking about your book. But we'll definitely be doing that. Wow. I think I'd like to be celebrating, gosh, how many things that I don't know, Eric. Probably just seeing you again. But I have so many things. Is it losing weight? Yep, that's one thing I'd like to celebrate. Two, maybe I'll have another book.
Hmm.
And then three, I will have traveled to Greece and had a great vacation, and also on my way to Ireland. How about that?
Wow. Awesome. Awesome. Cary, thank you so much. Can't wait to see you again. And thank you again for being a guest on the show today.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it. And I'll bring the Dom Perignon when we get together.
Thank you very much, Cary, for taking the time to speak with me today and sharing your experience as an entrepreneur leaving corporate America, as a woman, and as an amazing leader in our industry. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to connect with me, please go on LinkedIn or join my Facebook group, www.evenbusinessformula.com/group. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please share it with your network. Thank you. Bye-bye.